Welcome to Banyan Books, Branches of Wisdom, celebrating the joy of bright ideas and heartful lifelong learning. Branches of Wisdom is a series of intimate conversations with the world's most influential authors and visionaries. We explore spirituality and the human mind, ecology and culture. Most episodes are recorded with a live audience. You can join our live events and submit questions to your favorite guests. Check out our upcoming schedule at banyan.com. Since 1970, Banyan Books has been a rich oasis at the crossroads of wisdom and philosophy, offering resources for humanity's evolving paths. We're a locally owned, independent bookstore in the heart of Vancouver's Kitsilano neighborhood. Visit us in person or shop online at banyan.com. Please subscribe, follow, like, and leave your reviews for the podcast. And now, enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Branches of Wisdom, the Banyan Books live streaming event and podcast series. I'm your host, Ross McKeechee, and really excited that we have a special guest today, Cyndi Dale. I know a lot of people are excited for her to be here. Before we welcome her to join me, Banyan would like to acknowledge that although we have people joining from all over the world for these live streaming events, the physical location of Banyan Books and Sound is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Most of Banyan's live streaming event series is free and accessible for all, and we welcome your donations to help make these programs accessible. So you can go ahead and click on the donation link below in the PayPal link, and we welcome anything you'd like to offer. Also letting everybody know that towards the end of our conversation today with Cyndi Dale, we'll be taking questions from our live audience. So go ahead and type those into the comments field on YouTube, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Our guest, Cyndi Dale, is an internationally renowned intuitive healer, speaker, and author of over 40 books on energy medicine, intuition, and spirituality, including The Subtle Body, an encyclopedia of your energetic anatomy, which is a 4-time award winner. She has work published in 20 languages and has helped over 80,000 clients, leading workshops and seminars worldwide. Cyndi has been dubbed a teacher of teachers by Goop and has been featured in multiple documentaries. She collaborates with medical professionals, therapists, and thought leaders to bridge science and spirituality in profound and practical ways. Now, today, Cyndi is with Banyan Books in conversation, exploring her new book, Transforming the Legacy, the subtle body approach to honor and heal your inherited lineage. In Transforming the Legacy, Cyndi presents a transformative method for addressing inherited and soul-based issues through the energetic anatomy, chakras, meridians, and auric field. She brings her expertise in energy medicine to help you release ancestral blocks, reclaim your authentic self, and establish a future rooted in love, clarity, and well-being. In the book's foreword, Lisa Collins, author, associate professor, and trauma healer, says this: the theme of this book, in a nutshell, it incorporates energy learning and healing with scientific knowledge and robust storytelling. It's a wonderful book. It's very comprehensive and in-depth, and it builds on all of her past work leading up to now. If you'd like to learn more about Cyndi, her website is cindydale.com. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for Cyndi Dale.
Thank you, Ross, and everybody else. I'm so happy to be here. I really love the robust storytelling part of the book.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that part of the book too.
I think that's what we need more of, our stories. And when we're talking about healing our lineage and honoring it as well, we're really talking about stories. What are the silent stories that make up our genetic codes? What are the ones that we grew up with? And what are the ones we tell ourselves? And I think some stories need to be re-examined, maybe changed completely, and some can go forward and, like you were saying, lead us into, our best possible future. One of my goals for that book was to help people become their own best ancestor, not just be about the past or the present, but what they inherited can be passed down to create, a really lovely future. And I think that's what we're all aiming for our own lives, and certainly for those who are coming after us too.
I love that term that you used, becoming our own best ancestor.
I think it's the term that when I was writing the book, when I was drafting it, that was my title for the book. And it kind of caught me a little bit too. I have two sons. I call them boys. They're not boys anymore. They're men, but they're still my boys. And my youngest is doing a lot of deep diving, into exploring himself, his ancestry, his history, me, what I did wrong. And, but I said to him, for you to become your own best ancestor, I am open to changing who I am and how I am with you, and helping you understand the stories, that you have inside of yourself, those that are assisting you and those that are causing for him its anxiety. So I don't think I don't think that path ever ends of self-growth and, self-healing. But every single time I know I work on that and I reactivate some of what came before me, gifts that my ancestors had, gifts that my soul used in different lifetimes. Now, I was beforehand bragging that I would sing if something went wrong, but that gift has not been reactivated. Any ancestor or any past life. But think about it. We have like piano keys back there, and books full of tales, what we've done, what others have done that come before us. We can tap all that open, for the positive, not only to transform, what we're sitting there and going, that's not working. Inherited trauma. We know now that there's inherited trauma, legacies of trauma, but there's also inherited capabilities and strength and wisdom gathering too.
Yes. I'm very curious. You mentioned just a moment ago working with your son to help him, the relationship with you. And I've done that with my own parents too. And what my mom is, I'm curious your perspective. My mom said this to me, and I want to know if it's true for you. When I bring these things to her, and I try to be non-confrontational and say, you did a good job, but there's this and this, I'm trying to work through it. Have you found that it helps you to also work through things when your son is bringing this?
Absolutely. I have a very interesting story about that too. 2-3 weeks ago, I had a negative mammogram on my right breast. And nobody wants that, right? And I thought, this is an opportunity. I need to know what this is about. So I did some reflection, did some meditation. And the procedure is you go back in another week and they take another mammogram. And then if there's still something there, the radiologist takes an ultrasound. And when I was tuning into it, and I felt that there was something really growing there, I knew immediately this is about a wound. This is about a wound I gave my youngest son. I just knew it. And it came out of my own wounding. I didn't feel shameful. I thought I need to talk to him. So we set aside some time, and we ended up with a 2-hour, basically deep talk, deep cry. And he suddenly remembered what he thinks his core wound was. When he was 2.5 or 3, his dad and I were divorcing. I had him all the time, but one night a week. And he said all he could think of during that whole first year on that one night was his mommy wasn't there. Oh, right? I could feel my breast shifting, because I'm sure I did feel this is all I can do. And it's better for him to have a healthy household, than live the way we were living. But when I went 2 days after that for the exam, on the way, the guides were saying, you have cleared almost all of this. So the cyst, the tumor, whatever it is, the growth will be half gone on the first mammogram. And then if you clear the rest, it will be all the way gone on the ultrasound. that's a pretty heavy pressure. And I looked at the first mammogram, they'll show you, and there was a lump. The second one, it was half gone. And I said, oh, I need to forgive myself. And then the ultrasound was clear. So it was vivid. It's vivid. And I do subtle energy work. 99.999% of who we are is subtle energy. Subtle energy is organized in systems much like the physical body is, but it is the lattice work. And working with subtle energy, I think sometimes people can do a little spiritual bypassing, like it's magic. I'm just going to disappear it. And many of the, kind of the issues that we're dealing with, we still have to feel them, look at them, know them, move through them, and then poof, the subtle energy then it is almost miraculous. The definition of a miracle I really like is by C.S. Lewis. He wrote all those Chronicles of Narnia books. I don't know if anybody else read them, but I love those. He said, a miracle is the appearance of what's supposed to be here, which to me infers is the disappearance of what's not supposed to be here. So that's what I got to experience. And my son has felt so much more lighthearted, since then. So, it's and I kind of wish my parents had that attitude, too, that it would be, can we interrelate, about what came before. Near my mom's death, she lived to about 92. She'd always been a writer. She'd been writing stories about growing up in the prairie of North Dakota during the Depression for 30 years. So she's 86, 87, and I'm the only one in town who, family who takes care of her. And I went over there and said, which I did twice a week, I said, Mom, you got to get that book published. You just got to finish. She goes, don't you rush me. I said, you're not going to be dead soon. I'm fairly blunt. And I said, this book's important for you to finish because it's about your upbringing and what you're working through from your parents and their parents. And she protested the whole darn way for 2 years. I'd go over, we would edit. I then finally got her an editor. We got it self-published. 88, she's got a published book. And it's about her history. I know, isn't that something?
It's amazing.
And that was her way of working through her heritage and her lineage as well.
Wow. Okay, there's so many directions we can go, but I want to just to help our audience maybe enter the topic a little more. You've already described a little bit what the subtle energy is, the subtle body. Can you just give us a little description of the subtle body, the things that we should know, and then how that relates to working with our ancestral lineage?
Absolutely. So as I've already shared from a scientific perspective, 99.999% of all energy is subtle, which is the same as psychic or spiritual or quantum. I mean, quantum physics probably best explains the invisible stuff we're made out of. And all we really are, besides a tiny little bit of physical matter, which is on a continuum with physical, like it turns into physical and then physical, can turn into the invisible, but very productive and powerful as well. All we are is energy, which is information that moves. So it's information that's telling coffee to be a coffee. If you change that data, it could turn into tea and vibration. Or movement, is it hot or cold coffee or whatever you have. So we are fields of light and sound and mainly subtle energy. I mean, we don't really have skin. I mean, it's not a boundary. It's just fluid fields of subtle energy is most of who we are and what we're all about. So the subtle energy is organized into systems the same way we organize the physical body. So the physical body, which is a very tiny part of us, right? Has organs, and the major organs in the subtle body or subtle energetic anatomy, the major organs are also called centers. We usually call them chakras. Different names, different cultures. Typically we call them chakras, here in the West and in many parts of the East as well. just like the physical body has channels, lymph and blood, the subtle body has channels, and there's two types. There's, in the Hindu system, there's nadis, NADIS. Those are mainly the nerves, and meridians, which we've really proven exist, by the way. They flow through the connective tissue. They're electrical conduits in the connective tissue. And then we have fields, which I've already described. The physical body gives off fields of energy. That's what you're measuring when you're looking at an EEG or an EKG or whatever it might be, or an ultrasound, as it was in my case. And fields of energy are also part of the subtle body. And they're usually the chakras, subtle fields are what we reference, the auric fields, but we're just one giant field anyway, no matter how you look at it. So most approaches to healing our lineage, and there's a lot of that these days. Great books and practices in books like The Body Keeps the Score, are centering on the science of what they call the epigenome. The epigenome is a chemical soup around your genes, and it basically holds ancestors' memories. You have like 250 types of epigenomes, and what happened before is in there, including the trauma. So, or a tendency toward illness or emotional challenges or gifts or abilities or resilience, etc. And when internally we trigger what's in the epigenome or our ancestors' memories, or something happens outside of us is kind of similar to what an ancestor went through, it can trigger the epigenome. And we have physical reactions, we have stress reactions, we might get emotional reactions or illnesses or genetic changes that can turn into cancer or heart problems or whatever it might be. By the time we're working with the physical energy, science still doesn't know how to change the epigenome. They can change your food or diet or and environment to some extent. You're mainly subtle energy. So my approach, I think, is really logical, is if you want to alter the epigenome, and if you want to work with your soul, the issues of your soul from different incarnations, you're your own ancestor coming forward with your soul, that's encoded inside of your system and your way of being and your trauma reactions too. You're going to get a lot farther working with subtle energy, because that's what determines actually what's in the physical realm, the physical body, your physical behavior. So I lead people on a lot of exercises. I'm a science geek, so I teach the science, I teach the energy, the science of energy as well, how the body responds to stress, how inherited traumas impact us. And then I give people a lot of opportunities to use their chakras, their nadis, their meridians, and their energy fields to actually heal trauma that came in through their soul and or their bloodlines and or hybrid lifetimes where your soul was in your own bloodline, and really get clear in the present. And then the subtle energy body is terrific for projecting toward the future and starting to create a more optimum path. So it's very widespread. You can do so much with subtle energy, and physical energy is just a lot slower. So it's a quick, effective, and really beautiful, elegant, I think, way to approach how to become who we really are.
Fantastic. So I just want to kind of reiterate a point for our audience, because you outline that there's 3 pillars in the book, 3 pillars to working with our lineage inheritances. So you just mentioned blood lineage, soul lineage, and hybrid lineage inheritances.
Hybrid's fascinating. And I work with a lot of clients. It's really common that if they're doing a regression, they come up with a lifetime in which they were in one of their own this life bloodlines. And I even start the book with a story of when my family used to travel from Minneapolis to the way far edge of North Dakota, 3, 4, whatever times a year to visit my farm family through my mom. It was a very miserable trip every single time. It was kind of boring. And then you got 3 girls stuck in the back. But when I was about 10, my grandmother Marie had put out a picture that hadn't been out before. And I saw it and I said, that was me. It was her dead twin sister. I knew it was me. It was me. And later, I did some work around that, and it helped explain why I very much disliked my grandmother. She disliked me too. Let's just be really honest about that. And it wasn't only because I got grounded, because she slept in my room one night and I had frogs in the closet and they got out. And then I was grounded for like weeks, which I thought was dreadfully unfair. She was very angry. So was my mother. But the story in the hybrid, I was her twin sister. I died before coming to America. She came over here, met Olaf. We're very Norwegian, Olaf Norstag. And I was like, but I was supposed to come over too and marry Olaf. So I know it sounds a little incestuous. It's not, because I was dead. But it explains some of the weird types of jealousies I'd had, not of my grandmother, but like if a girlfriend got the boy, that I had a crush on or whatever it might be. And my grandmother had even talked about how her sister had these really clear intuitive gifts. And so I reactivated those in this lifetime, and more of them came online. So they're double powerful because it's our soul, which carries our history. It carries what I call the karma. To me, that's just wisdoms we haven't gathered yet about love, ways that we still don't understand or live love. And our dharma, which is what we already know, how to approach love and how to be loving. So our soul has both of that. Our bloodline has both of that. And when we're alive in our own bloodline, our soul was then, our soul is now. It's sort of double power. Those hybrid experiences have big oomph because the soul and the bloodline come together, and your traits are really magnified from those past experiences.
Okay, wow. I want to jump a little bit. There's so much in this book, so we're only going to be able to scratch the surface a bit. And I just want to give people a little bit of an overview on some of the things. So one of the things in chapter 3, which is titled Basics on the Energy That Structures You and Your Life. Basics on the Energy That Structures You and Your Life. You give an overview of the elements that make up our subtle body, which you already mentioned: meridians, nadis, chakras, the aura. You also point to the idea that each chakra, and this was new to me, has an age at which it turns on and develops. I'm going to share a little quote and then I want to ask. So you say the following: being able to pinpoint the developmental age of a chakra will assist you in your chakra clearing and transformational exercises. It's far easier to track the origination of an issue if you know when that chakra turns on. Wow. Can you expand on that for us?
It is probably one of the most profound approaches you can do to healing, self-healing, and even manifesting, period, is to know when the chakras are most active, because that's when they're most influenced. So for instance, there's a chakra underneath the feet called the 10th chakra. In some systems, it's called the Earth Star chakra or the Earth chakra. And it's actually available first during preconception. It codes the epigenomes. Later, it shows up again more actively. But conception.
Sorry, can I jump in for a sec on that?
I would love you to. Yeah.
So you're saying preconception, it's already there. So it's so closely tied, I would guess, to our parental 10th chakra, which is already there.
Absolutely.
Born out of that? Is that?
They're born out of that. Yes. And the same idea that we're influenced in preconception exists in traditional Chinese medicine and other cultures too. So that 10th chakra, it programs the bone marrow, and that holds a lot of the epigenome. So does the connective tissue, which is kind of an extension at some level of the bone marrow. So we're born out of that 10th chakra. And it's our root to the earth as well. So it has a dualistic function, because as we age, it kind of goes, quiet again after conception, but it holds us in the earth, and the earth is held within the galaxy. So it's our connection to the cosmos too. It's probably one of the most important chakras that we have. I think the 10th and the first chakras are the two most important chakras to approach for doing healing work. The eighth,
Wow.
yeah, the eighth is way up there and it's the soul. But the 10th and the first, if you want to make really physical changes, those are the two chakras that you're going to go through.
And for people to understand, again, just to reiterate, the 10th is actually been located like into the earth a ways.
It's in the earth. It's about 2 feet underneath the ground. And it's available during preconception to do all this sort of planning and on what's going to happen with the sperm, with the egg. And they're kind of proving now the egg picks the sperm, but that's just a little feminism on on that
Just like
perception.
embodied life the same.
That's right. And then from conception to 6 months, so many studies are proving that is a critical time period. Even what we go through in utero later can show up as Parkinson's, MS, anorexia, different microbial issues, emotional issues. That's the first chakra. That's the one in the hip. We see it as red, and that's the primary physical chakra in terms of how we're going to function in the world. That's encoded really a lot by our experiences with our parents, but in the womb with our mom as well. We're made out of her cells. So we're very fluid during that time. What mom goes through is what we go through, and it all gets planted inside of us, including her microbes, her emotions, her feelings, and how she's impacted by the world around her, whoever her partner is, if she has a partner, as well, how her parents are treating her, if she gets pregnant and they don't want her to be pregnant. It's all, adoptive issues. They're all in that first chakra. It's probably the primary one about how you're going to function in your life.
Wow. Okay, so those two are activated. The first one, the 10th chakra, I should say, is preconception.
Mm-hmm.
Then the first chakra at the root is
conception to 6 months.
Right. Okay.
Of age.
Can you give us an example of a certain chakra, if possible, like where it clicks on in development, and then how we might work with that going backwards to say, okay, let's say, okay, I'm working with, okay, let's say my solar plexus. I feel a tension there. I'm having issues in that abdominal region or the liver, maybe something like that. Maybe there's anger issues. I'm just thinking of off the cuff examples.
But you're already right on it.
Okay. So how would I then say, so first off, when does that chakra come into play? When does
2.5 to 4.5. So we go from first to 6 months. Then the second chakra, which is largely emotional and creativity, that's that enteric nervous system, is roughly 6 months to 2.5. And then we're going into our personal power. That's 2.5 to 4.5. We're developing our sense of self in the world, how we organize our thoughts. We're getting our first, belief systems really developed. We're interjecting a lot of them, right? But we're picking up and making some conclusions, even if it's largely unconscious, between 2.5 and 4.5. And that's our digestive system, so self-esteem, self-confidence later is going to be how we succeed at work. Are we going to overwork, underwork? Are we going to, speak for ourselves, go for what we deserve, or hang back? So tension, say in the liver, in traditional Chinese medicine, you're spot on. The liver's about anger. It's usually on the right side of the body, has a lot to do with issues with masculinity or men or our fathers. So now we're starting to clue in, what was my life like between 2.5 and 4.5, especially around any male figures, or how I was treated in terms of my male, it is rather sexist to approach it, but my masculine type, kind of ways of interacting. And I mean that for girls or boys.
Right, that masculine quality.
Exactly. When I'm asserting, when I'm trying, when I'm doing things, was I pushed back? Was I this or that? For instance, people who develop borderline personality disorder often have had during 2.5 to 4.5, you know what? They would throw a tantrum and they got their way. So now they're still doing it, right? People codependent to borderlines, meaning they're sort of like shy about that. They let the bully them. And I'm not, speaking one side is positive rather than the other. They're both unhealthy patterns. But if you were raised in a family where there was bullying happening, and what was modeled, is the codependent to the bully, if you would back down, or you had to back down, or you were hit, you're probably going to be codependent to borderlines. You're probably going to attract borderline type people who just railroad you in your life. Now, there are those people anyway. We're not responsible if we meet those people. It doesn't mean we brought them into our life. It's if we engage with them or form permanent attachments, to people who are clearly not healthy for us either. Even a borderline can get attracted to a codependent, and it's therapy will do this, support that person who didn't speak up to them in saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And that's a great healing opportunity for the person who developed, a negative pattern, a really unhealthy pattern, when they were that little temper tantrum kid.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of excellent material there for people to explore when they get into the book. It's really,
I could talk forever about that. That third chakra is also the center of ADD, by the way.
Oh, wow.
That's not a bad condition. Somebody with a very open third chakra tends to be bringing in a lot of mental, cognitive intuition. So it's very easy to bring in so much psychic activity, that it will, land, in the right side of the brain, which is the creative side, and the head can't keep up with it. So then you get, some of that distraction or challenges, that might ensue from that too. So chakras are beautiful tools for figuring out who you are. Not just, oh, I have to change my ADD, but wow, that's a gift. How do I balance it with what I have to do in my life?
I just want to take one moment to remind our live audience, please send in your questions in the comments field on YouTube for Cyndi. We're going to get to those in just under 15 minutes here. Cyndi, chapter 9, you already mentioned meridians and nadis. Chapter 9 focuses on those. And there's a doorway there from traditional Chinese medicine. You talk about the Ming Men doorway. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then there was also a practice that maybe we could invite everybody to participate in.
That'd be lovely. So in traditional Chinese medicine, and there's different, theories about it, so I'm encapsulating them. This kind of goes with our 10th chakra talk, Ross, where you were talking about preconception and how much gets front loaded during preconception from our ancestry, etc. Well, the Ming Men doorway is between the kidneys, and it's open during preconception. So think about that like this. You're not even, you're like maybe a speck in your parents' mind. Maybe they weren't even planning on you, but it doesn't really matter because, past, present, future, it sort of all blurs in quantum physics. So it's a doorway that opens between the kidneys. The theory is that during preconception, the ancestral chi flows in through that doorway and becomes your basic programming. Awful lot like the 10th chakra, if you really compare, the two structures. And your luck, success, longevity, different illnesses, resilience, emotional issues are all thought to stream in during preconception. And then it is thought that the door is slammed. I don't think the door is slammed. I think we can open the door. And so what I do in the book, and I love to lead a meditation with this concept, and I will, is to help us open that door again and go back in time to preconception and bring through streams of energy that might be even more useful and or can transform what's not working from our ancestral flow into the into the life that we have right now. So I'm going to lead us through that meditation. What I want you to know, I like the brain to kind of know where we're going because then it can rest a little bit and let the process unfold, is that we're going to go back to preconception. I'm going to start us in an area, I call it the God spot or the divine chamber in your heart chakra. I'll lead us through the same ritual I use all the time in my practice, and I lead people through in classes in order to go back into preconception, reopen that door, and connect to two ancestors. They're really part of the same ancestor that would be your ideal ancestor. How about the creator? Whatever word you want to use for your own greater spirit, divine intelligence, the God, the goddess, creator mother, creator father. I'm going to suggest that we can bring through that energy, even though it's backward in time, bring it through now and be able to operate as if we've had the best parents and parenting and bloodlines possible for us throughout our entire existence. And it can change some epigenetics at the same time. So take a few deep breaths. Just bring yourself into a settled place and state within your body. Know that the words for breath and spirit are one and the same in many cultures. And feel gratitude that your body is already aware of that. You've been breathing since you were born. Your body knows how to, on the inhale, bring in everything you need from your own spirit or greater spirit. And it already knows how on every exhalation to release or let go of whatever you're finished with. And then on the next big inhale, just allow yourself to bring your focus, your consciousness into the center of your heart chakra, in the middle of your chest. Yeah, this is a divine chamber where your essence is always knowingly mixing, dancing, singing, enjoying, sleeping, resting, percolating with whatever you call presence or the greater spirit. And in fact, in here, any changes you make with subtle energy, because it's in the physical body, get made physiologically as well as psychologically and also spiritually. And from this place, just set the intention that your own spirit or immortal essence will be in charge of the process, connecting into guidance of the highest spiritual nature. And if it feels comfortable, turn the whole process over again to whatever you call that divine intelligence, higher power, greater spirit, the oneness. And this time, in an exhalation, you're going to find that guidance is bringing your consciousness immediately and swiftly backward in time to your preconception in regard to this lifetime. I just want you to enjoy this. Just sort of linger. A lot of people like this place. It's kind of free, kind of easy. It's like you're floating, you're being, you're you. And then as you did the first time, you start to become aware, oh, I'm going to be called forward. I'm going to go somewhere. That's going to be my family. Those are going to be my parents. The egg and the sperm haven't done their thing yet, but you're aware of that. That catches you. And you're in a preparatory kind of excitement or stage. And even as you're dwelling and floating here in preconception, become aware without going through it that there is actually a doorway in front of you, a portal, a gateway that is opening. And through it, streaming is mother's bloodline and what they're gifting and granting, what's going to be your baby body, and father's bloodline of what they're granting and going to be gifting that baby body, with your old soul, will be kind of partaking in that recipe. And at some level, this is already happening, but you're back in preconception and you can make an additional decision. What if you were to, this time, this round, before this body really gets substantiated, request that your ultimate bloodline sends through that doorway for the body, for you, what is known that you will need, the wishes, the personality traits, the ideas, the unconditional love and empowerment. And now you experience, coming from perhaps the left, whatever you experience as the creator mother, moving through the maternal bloodlines to shift them, to transform them, to add her own. And most likely on the right, all those paternal bloodlines are now being joined by whatever words you would use to describe Father Creator coming through. And they're joining at that doorway. And they're streaming energy into what's going to be that little baby body, but they're also holding hands. Remember, you're still lingering in preconception. They're holding hands and saying, here, let us bring you in. So in those divine hands of love and protection and eternal renewal and approval and guidance, now you're brought in a very brand new way, through preconception, through the Mingmen doorway, through conception, into that little baby body, fast forwarding in time, all the way to right now. And you can feel those streams of energy, the creator energy. There's a story in Genesis, an alternative one than we're usually shown, and it's in there that creator was an Elohim, a plural, male, female, and both, and all. And literally, as this beautiful mother, father, all energy enters you, you can feel it shifting, transforming, and you need do nothing, because it's a gift from your ultimate parent as a child of the universe for this transmutation to occur. And it will continue. You need do nothing, just experience and watch. Take a few deep breaths. Bring your focus back into that basin of joy and love and contentment and holding within the God spot, the divine chamber in your heart. And know that if there's anything you need to know about this transformation, it will be made clear to you through your intuition, through an experience, through a book you read, through a dream. You will be shown, you will be taught. As always, always, you are unconditionally loved. Breathe your way back and open your eyes when you're ready.
Oh, thank you, Cyndi.
I've done this many, many times, and each time it feels different to me. I feel like there's a little bit more that I allow in. And I actually have a picture for me of my mother creator and father creator. So I encourage people, if that develops for them, to go with it. Mine are raising me in a cabin. And, my mother creator has this long hair and she cooks unlike me. And she's, my father creator is this bushy beard. And, so sometimes our brain will participate too and give us vivid images. And that's very helpful as well, because we're human.
I actually had a very strong image of there's a deity in the yogic system called Ardhanarishwara that's half man, half woman, and there's a beautiful image
Yes,
of it's like Shiva Shakti,
perfect.
one half on each side. Yeah.
Perfect. That's exactly it. That's like the Elohim, of the Judaic tradition too. A different image, but the same idea too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both and all, both and more. Beautiful.
Hey, we've got some nice questions coming in from the live audience. Is it okay if we tend to some of those?
Please, I'd love to.
Okay. There's one here from Olia who says, I was reading the book, It Didn't Start With You, and it triggered anxiety and some heavy stuff. Now I'm afraid to read these kind of books. What can I do about it? How to approach reading this book?
You know what I would do? Trust your intuition. Open wherever you feel like opening. You don't have to read front to back. You don't have to read back to front either. You can either look at the table of contents and get a sense, oh, this is exciting. Maybe you jump to almost the last chapter, which is about the future, which you really can't get that triggered when you're planning for a great future. But so read the table of contents and go with where you're drawn that feels safe for you. Or just pull out one exercise. There's a content, a section of that, or literally just open where you feel like opening, take a paragraph and start there. I think any self-help book, that's a wonderful thing to do because we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves. And most people who are interested in topics like this, energy medicine, spirituality, even the science of, we tend to be very sensitive, which is a very beautiful, beautiful way of being. And so we need to be gentle with ourselves too.
Whoops, sorry, I was muted there. I said thank you for that. There's another question here from Aaron that says, is the development of chakras parallel to Maslow's hierarchy of needs triangle in that each level in the triangle is needs to establish for the next one to develop?
It's a great question. Yes, I'm going to say yes. And then there's an additional point to make about that. So Maslow's hierarchy goes all the way up to self-realization and then beyond, to sort of a oneness. He added that, later. And the first, of course, is meeting your physical needs. And it really tracks with the chakra system because the chakras are ultimately like stairways, to development or enlightenment. David Hawkins wrote a book, Power versus Force, and he has these consciousness levels that are sort of similar too. And so, yes, you have to establish each. However, what I would do, like maybe someone in contrast to David Hawkins, is also say there's no lower versus higher. There's no not as smart versus smarter. There's no less conscious versus more conscious. They are all equally important. Some of us develop maybe the emotional before the physical, or maybe some people are born with a very high clairvoyance, right, which is sixth chakra, and kind of an ability to have strategy and vision, and then they have to go back and develop some of the other pieces. So they're a bit like piano keys too, and we're very individuated. I would just say, for me, I sometimes like to put them horizontal instead of vertical and get out of the judgmental approach that I can sometimes take to things like this and go, being physically, taking care of my body, that is, and you're inferring this anyway, that is equally important, as developing all these other pieces and to keep taking care of the physical body. And we keep taking care of the emotions. Because I think some systems have us sort of want to leave behind what's below. And we actually just get, sort of better at doing all of it as time goes on.
Great. And this actually perfectly leads into the next question from S. Lautensock, who says, in your opinion, why does the quote unquote West rely so heavily on allopathic medicine to the point of exclusion of older healing modalities? What does it say about our relationship to the body and healing?
Oh, I know. It's really sad, isn't it? So, there's there's another piece of data I want to speak to, and then I'm going to go back to the allopathic versus the more holistic and integrative ideas. And I do want to say too that I believe that the term some of us use now, energy medicine, includes allopathic. Everything's energy. Surgery is, doctors do energy medicine, they just don't know it. So I might point that out to them, and I have been known to do that once in a while, as well. But we have two neurological systems. The older neurological system, and this is science, is called analog. Analog is the dream-based system. In our analog, we all are based this way, so are other species. Thousands of years ago, we lived out of analog. We knew we were one with nature. Our idea of God or gods was one with nature. Spirituality was one with the body. So we weren't separate from the body. The body wasn't separate from God. And it was very common to get instruction from nature, from the gods, whatever the terms would have been at different times, through dreams, through visitations, even in early Judaic times, Joseph of divination with a cup. I've done a lot of study with different indigenous shamans, and everything was, oh, this is what happened in my dream, or that tree got, was hit by lightning. What does that mean for me? Or here's the bird. So a lot of cultures still function that way, probably decreasingly so. But the East has remained connected and fluid, I think, for the most part, at least their spiritual approach and many of the medicinal approaches to the analog. More recently, when we started doing, a few thousand years ago, when we started doing more division of labor, we developed the digital neurological system, which is really primary in the West. If you do analog, you're weird. You're not going to get an A in class. If your answer, if you just put down the math answer without showing your logic, you're going to get flunked. I mean, that's kind of the approach. But digital is timely, it's consecutive, it's this and that. And that's still how the West developed. That became our key to success. That's how we did farming. That's how we did the industrial society. That's how we became colonialists and conquered, people that didn't want to be conquered. They weren't voting us in. And so allopathic medicine is digital. It's digital. It's more measurable. And so there's that split from the early medicines, which were shamanic, in which the healers were priest healers. They were medics and spiritual. Allopathic is just taking the medic part and going with the digital. So that's largely what's happening. I think here we are, resurging with the analog, but some authors have even say we've de-evolved across time because we keep trying to shame ourselves out of the analog. So that would be my approach to that. And I'm encouraging all of us to be on time when we have to be, that's digital, but live from the analog. It's like Brazilian runners who would run 90 miles to deliver a message and not stop and not eat. That's analog. That's exchange of subtle energy with the spirits of plants and animals and elements. I think that's how we're made to be.
That was a very comprehensive and insightful answer, Cyndi. Thank you. No, I really appreciate that answer. There's a few more questions here. We got a couple more minutes. The first one I want to ask you is, do you believe energy healing, sorry, this is from Marcus, who says, do you believe energy healing can shift ancestral patterns even if we don't know our full family history?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The story is there, whether we know it or not. It can shift subconscious. I think the subconscious is the blend of our ancestors and our soul and our inner children issues and what we've absorbed from culture. And, nothing penetrates that better than the light, of subtle energy. We don't need to know who they are. I was teaching a seminar in Chicago last weekend, And one of the women was like, are these techniques going to work even though I'm adopted? And we were doing some healing in our ancestry. I said, absolutely. You don't have to know who they are. That the codes are in you anyway. You don't have to know anything about your history. You don't have to do whatever the cool new, genetic 1, 2, 3 testing is, in order to have this be effective.
Awesome. That's great. And Brian asks, how do you recommend starting the process of transforming inherited wounds when it feels overwhelming?
Oh, it can. You know what I would start with? And I'm basing this on my personal history too. I would start with grandparents. Maybe for a week, I would focus on, maybe dad's family or mom's family. It doesn't matter where you start. And it doesn't matter if you know them either. But set yourself up, use that divine chamber, God spot, a very simple technique, affirm your spirit, helping spirits, the best part of all spirits, the greater spirit. No, healing energies are always available. And just go into the week and say, I would like to be healed from, better understand, and transform whatever it is about my dad's dad, that I can do this week. And then just be open. It's like a vision quest. Maybe you'll get dreams. Maybe you'll remember memories. If that person is deceased, you may hear their voice. You may watch a show and start crying because he looks just like your grandpa. I think it's really great to do the healing in everyday life, and just be opened. We're in that analog way of approaching the world. We're part of the world. We're part of nature, and it will assist us. And I think that's kind of a fun way to do it too, rather than just going, oh, I've got to sit down for half an hour and meditate, and I fall asleep when I meditate. So I would put it into my life.
That's great. That's really great. Thank you, Cyndi, for responding to all those audience questions. And thanks to our fantastic Banyan community for all of your questions always. We really appreciate it. And for Jacob, our awesome producer and events curator who's feeding me the questions behind the scenes and producing everything. I have one more question for you, Cyndi, to close, but I just want to remind everybody we've been speaking with the wonderful Cyndi Dale. Her new book is called Transforming the Legacy: The Subtle Body Approach to Honor and Heal Your Inherited Lineage. And of course, you can get it at banyan.com or come by the shop in Kitsilano in Vancouver and spend some time, stay a while. Cyndi's website is cindydale.com in case you want to learn more about her. Cyndi, I want to ask, what do you see as the future? What's exciting you in terms of the future of subtle body work and the modern world?
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. You know what excites me is that young people are into it. Young people are doing, meditation. And I would say millennials, and on down. And, sports people are starting to do subtle body work, Reiki, subtle body, lineage clearing, etc. I mean, it's a groundswell. There's lots of research on it. Healing Touch has research. Daniel Benner has always put research on there. Shamini Jain has written a great book, Healing Ourselves. It has biofield research. So I think as the science, opens up, there'll be even more people turning to, subtle energies and substantiating them.
Wonderful. And if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to work with you, do you have any programs coming up, or
I have some fun programs. I have, starting just really soon, a 7-week class through the Shift Network to do quantum psychic surgery through 7 dimensions. It's super cool. I'm really excited. It's on my site. And then I'll have other programs after that. I'll be doing a 18-part deep dive through them. Once a year, I do a apprenticeship program where you study with me for a year. I'm going to be doing an interesting Getting Beyond Darkness class starting in September too. It's not on my site yet, but I do know the 7-week program is there, and I'm very popped about that.
What is quantum psychic surgery?
Well, okay. Thank you for asking, and I'll answer quick. Psychic surgery basically involves substituting a healthy pattern for an unhealthy one. And I've been working more with universal and personal patterns, quantum patterns, not individual codes. Like, let's change out, an unhealthy microbiome pattern with a healthy one. Let's do that for our intuition. Let's do that for our neurology. And I work with the dimensions because they're doorways that you can do different things in. Like, third dimension is structure, so we work with the spine. So I've been seeing great impact with this kind of approach.
That sounds great. That sounds really great. Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for being with us. Really an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross, for this lovely time with you interfacing as well.
Thanks for joining us for Branches of Wisdom, a podcast of Banyan Books and Sound, Canada's spiritual and healing resource since 1970. Our podcast producer is Jacob Steele, and I'm your host, Ross McKeechee. Watch all our conversations on YouTube by searching for Banyan Books, or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Please subscribe, follow, like, and leave your reviews and comments. We love to hear from you. For all our live events, books, and more, visit us at banyan.com.